welcome to another episode of the Keeping It Real podcast. I hope you all have had an amazing day, and I hope you all have had a great week. And I'm also hoping that this weekend has been spectacular for you all. Now, you all probably remember last month when I started this podcast, I wasn't really sure where it was going to go. I was not sure of what I was going to talk about. I was just going to wing it. And I'm sure that you all probably have realized that the podcasts that have been released this month has had a common theme. And the ones that released last month also had a theme. So I'm going to try to keep these podcast episodes thematic throughout the month. And like I said at the beginning, I didn't know where I was going to go with this. I was just going to come on and just wing it and talk about what God has put on my heart. So in this month, I have, since I have personally been dealing with things with friends, I had so many things that I just had to share with so many people. And so I decided to come on here and create these episodes. So I hope you all have been enjoying them. And I would be super happy if you shared the video with your friends, with your community, so that way they can give their inputs as well. And, there's nothing but positivity over here. That's all I really try to spread is positivity. And throughout this month, a lot of the podcast episodes about friends, because like I said, I have been dealing with this head on personally. So a lot of them has had some negative comments about them. So, what better way, I should say, what better way to end the month with a positive podcast? And I've slipped some positive things into the recent episodes, but I was really just trying to raise awareness, to people, because there's so many people who are just fragile and they don't know what to do whenever they are getting mistreated by a friend. Sometimes people just stay in a relationship when the time to leave is long overdue. But today I'm going to talk about where to find these long-term relationships. Where are you finding love? Where are you looking? And we'll talk a lot about that today because, in order to prevent a future situation from happening where you could possibly end up losing a friend, you could try by starting off looking in the places that, you know, that may provide you a good community. I think that may be an issue in today's society is we're craving love, whether it's from a friend or whether it's from a romantic partner. We're craving love in some of the wrong places. There's nothing wrong with craving affection. That's natural. But where are we looking for this affection? Because sometimes if we look in the wrong places, we end up getting a result that is not the one that we intended to have. And so I think it's really good to take things slow at the beginning. I'm going to talk about two different types of relationships today. I'm going to be talking about friendships. I'm also going to be talking about relationships, romantic relationships, I should say. So I'm going to first start by talking about how to or where to really look to find a good friendship and how to keep that friendship so that way it's long term. Sometimes it depends on what your daily life looks like. If you're a college student, you're going to class. If you are a person who works, you're going to work. And if you are in high school or just in regular school, grade school, I should say, you're probably going to be finding friends at school. And sometimes we feel as if we meet the right people there. And then we come to find out later that they are not the ones for us. And like I said, I have dealt with this personally head on, so I know exactly what I'm talking about. And sometimes it's really good to keep your circle small because sometimes the bigger the circle, the more issues that you're more likely to come across. So where do you find these good friendships? Look in your community. Go to school, go to work, you know, do anything else that you do on a daily basis. Try to hang out with people outside of work or outside of the community that is bringing you together, because it's more so about what are you doing outside of that event that really counts. Because if someone truly wants to be your friend, they're going to want to spend more time with you outside of work, outside of school, outside of church. Wherever you found that friend or whatever is bringing you together, that's that's what's keeping you together. But how are they acting outside of those communities? Because there I think there are some friendships that are proximity friendships. Proximity friendships is the bond still there when we're nowhere around? Or is the closeness, the physical closeness, what's holding us together? Because if that's the case, you probably do not have a solid friendship, because unless you are willing to stay together forever, part of life is we have to get up and sometimes we have to move away from our family and friends to embark on our career or to just go start a family. We don't always stay in the same place forever. So, how is your bond when you're not always seeing each other on a daily basis or even every other week or something like that? Can you go 1 year without seeing each other and still uphold a friendship? Can you go a month without seeing each other and still uphold a friendship? Or can you even go months without talking over the phone? But then when you come back together, you guys still had that chemistry. So, if that's the case, that's a good friend. If not, that's probably not a good friend. And there's been times when I was younger, I was around a lot of military families, and I had these friends. And when they moved away, I was homeschooled. So, I took every friend that I could get and I held them as close as I could, you know. But I remember when these people left, I was so torn apart because I did not know if I was going to ever see them again. Well, we had each other's contact. We were young, but we still kept in contact. And even though we didn't see each other as often, we still remained good friends. Unfortunately, we're not really friends anymore. But, it's really about how do they treat you when they don't see you. I think what also helps to analyze whether someone is a good friend is how are they acting around other people. If they have their own group of friends, like say for instance they're a part of a clique, which I'm super against, but say for instance they were a part of the clique, are they excluding you from the conversation? Are they excluding you from the group? That's not genuine friendship. First of all, cliques are very unhealthy in my opinion. I don't think that they really build any type of community. I think they're really exclusive to others. And I think that if you do not fit in with their stereotypes or their aesthetic, then they don't want to have anything to do with you. But, some of our friends in our closest circle are a part of those groups. So, how do they treat you when they are in those groups? Do they exclude you? If they exclude you, then that means that they only want to hang out with you when they are nowhere around the clique. That's not a genuine friendship. Do they include you in the conversation? That's good. That's good. But personally, if it were me, I would not want to be a part of the clique because, like I stated, cliques are not beneficial. I don't see anything wrong with having your own group of friends. That's okay. But cliques tend to be extremely exclusive and they can tend to just push off this vibe that is just negative. I think it's good to try to analyze their behavior outside of the events that's holding you guys together. Like, say, you know what? I want to get to know you more. Would you like to go get some coffee or some lunch or something like that? And you know what? If you guys click, maybe that's a good friendship. But you still need to see how is it that they treat you when they are not around their group of friends. You know, that really matters because Like I've stated in an episode or two ago, sometimes when you are in these cliques, they want you to try to change yourself to fit in. Friendship should not be a fitting room. You should not have to fit in to the friendship. So you got to really look at those things. You got to pay attention to those small details. And I'm hoping that once you realize that and look at how they are treating you, both in the community and when you're nowhere around the community, if they are treating you with love and care and dignity that you deserve, that's a good friend. That's a keeper. And I have a couple of those, and they're really hard to find. And when you find them, treat them as if they are a jewel, because those are the people that you should be relying on when you are stuck. It's good to check on them too. You don't always want to just be the person that's always complaining about your life but not checking on them. But hold those people the closest to you. Those are the ones that you really, really should want to rely on, instead of filling up your circle with fake friends that are only going to be there for you for just a little bit. And then when they're no longer in the group or no longer in the community, they push you to the side. Those aren't genuine friends. Those are filler friends. And I've had some of those too. And filler friends, I feel like filler friends are just people that are there just because you emotionally need it. And and then hopefully, maybe if you guys just continue to hang out more, maybe you'll get to know that person more and they'll be more than a filler friend. But sometimes people have those because they need someone to be emotionally available for them so they can vent or just to talk to. And I've had some of those, but we've gotten closer. I don't have any filler friends now. But you know, just look at your own friendships. See if the person that you're talking to or the group that you're in is inclusive to you, or if the friend that you claim to have is treating you the same way that they would treat you if it was just you two. Because let me tell you something, one thing you would not do to me is treat me poorly when you're in front of everyone else, but treat me just like a diamond when you're just with me. No, you got to treat me the same. You got to treat me the same. I always say I deserve to be valued. I deserve to be treated as if I'm a jewel. I deserve to be shown. Don't let a friend hide you. I don't let a friend just say, you know what, he's this. He's not my friend. He's just someone that I just talk to from time to time. Don't let someone deny you like that either. And friendships aren't romantic relationships, but I do think in friendships there should be some type of commitment, that you can trust them, that you can rely on them, and that they'll be there for you whenever you need to vent, or whenever you have a bad day and you just want to talk about it or just de-stress, you know? So analyze your friendships. See if your friendships are truly true or if they're just filler friendships, because if they are, you might want to cut them out of your life. So we talked a lot about friendships, but where do you find love when it comes to romantic relationships? Now, this is the thing that my friend and I were talking about last night, because I think in today's society, especially us guys, we crave affection so much that we just look in some of the worst places for love. We just crave that fulfillment, from a woman or just from anyone, but especially when it comes to romantic relationships, we're just craving that. And there's nothing wrong with craving it. I mean, I even crave it. But where are we looking for those relationships? And sometimes I think as us guys, we get so desperate for it that's how the pornographic realm opens up, because we go to that one video, or we go to that one picture, or that one model that we just love to look the one model we just love to look at, and we get fulfillment from that. But at the same time, you know those things are only temporary. They're not going to fulfill you the way you need to be fulfilled, because you're always going to feel empty. You know, those few minutes of fulfillment is going to go away. And then after that, when you're back in the real world and you still don't have a partner, you're still not going to get that fulfillment that you need. So, it's good to go out and date. It's really good to go out and date and see what it is that you like and what you don't like. And I think while you're still young, that's the perfect time to do it. I'm still young, so I'm one to talk, but it's really good to just go out and see what it is that you like, what you don't accept, what you do accept, what you want from a relationship, what you don't. But you don't want to scare them off. You know, there's some people in relationships, they feel as if they need to be reassured. There's nothing wrong with that, but here's something I'll say about that. We as adults, we have to make sure that we reassure ourselves, because we have to love ourselves first before we can ever try to love someone else. If we do not even have respect or love for ourselves, how do you even think we'll have the capacity to love someone else? We won't. You've got to be able to reassure yourself. You've got to stop going to outside sources asking for their opinion. You should be looking in the mirror and saying, you know what, I look good. Today's going to be a good day. Set goals for yourself. You know what? You don't always need someone to tell you, you know what, you look you look nice. That's good to have, you know, someone telling you you look good. But you can't always be like, well, you know what? I feel as if I'm ugly unless this person tells me I'm not. You've got to have self-assurance. That's super important in a relationship, because at the end of the day, if you're only depending on them for reassurance, that's putting a lot of pressure on them, because along with trying to make sure their themselves are happy, they've also got to make sure that you are mentally okay too. And that's a lot to put on someone's shoulders. That you just need all these things, but you're not giving them those things in return. Relationships have to be two ways, not two way. Oh my goodness. But communication has to go both ways, and relationships are the same way. If there's no communication, and if there's only one person pouring into the other person, it's not going to last. And that's how some people get so drained by relationships, because it's only one person that's upholding or keeping the relationship alive. It's going to have to take more than that. It's really going to have to take more than that. Both people have to be pouring into each other. And hopefully you're building a relationship with God in the middle of it, because I know me personally, I date to marry. It's not just like a fun little get together every now and then. If I'm dating you and I'm seeking to be in a relationship with you, I'm thinking about our future. And I'm not weird with it, like already asking about how many kids you want. But, as Christians, especially, I think our goal is to date to marry. And so whenever I go out on dates, I always have that in mind. Where do I see it, like, if this were to go well, where do I see us in the next 5 years? Do I see us living together? Do I see us still not being sure about what we want? And you'll get those signs sometimes even before the date, but you'll really get them when you go on the date. But it's good to date around, get to know people, get to explore what you like and what you don't. So that way, when you go forward and start this family, you'll already have that established. And we have to be able to accept the other person for who they are, because another issue I've realized in today's society is once we get with the person, then we want them to change. But if they were like this before you guys were even committed together, you can't even expect them to change. You accepted this person for who they are to begin with. You have to expect that they're not going to change in a relationship. So that's why it's really important to date and try to find love in those right places. And it's not good to go to those pornographic websites or those magazines and looking for fulfillment there, because, like I said, that's only temporary. It's not going to make you happy. It'll make you happy for a little bit, but once that time is up, you're still back to yourself. You're still back to not having the partner that you've always wanted. So instead of doing that, try to go out, go find someone, go out on dates, get to know people, and don't be so weird about it either, because I know people, they are just so quick to want to be in a relationship. They don't even know the guy or girl's middle name and they're already talking about having sex. Like, chill out a little bit, and I also believe that if you're talking about that quickly, that's a red flag. Because before you even start out going on a date, I think that you should try to get to know each other as friends if you're just being introduced to this person. You shouldn't be talking about what's in your guys' pants. Like, I mean, that's crazy. So when you go out and go on these dates, in order for it to be successful, you have to try to take it slow. Try to get to know the person. Don't be so desperate. Get to know them and then go forward. Now, there's different types of people. There's people who are wanting to have a relationship built on the foundation of Christ, and then there's some that just want to be in a relationship. And if you're someone who wants to build your house on a foundation of Christ, what you need to do is make sure that you're equally yoked. And so this goes back to finding love in the right places, because if you're a Christian and your partner is not a Christian, the relationship is going to be toxic, because you're going to have one person trying to pour into the other person when the other person isn't necessarily wanting to hear it. And it's not going to work, because if you have kids one day, how is that going to work? You really got to think about these things. And if you just rush into it and just go with the flow, sometimes you're gonna end up doing yourself an injustice because you rushed into it. That is why it's so important to get to know people. You know, don't be so quick and desperate for love to the point to where you just settle for less. I've talked I've talked in a prior episode about putting yourself on a pedestal. When you go into these relationships, go in walk in knowing your worth, knowing what you will tolerate, knowing what you won't tolerate. And then you make your partner aware of that, and you set clear boundaries. And then at the same time you respect his or her boundaries, because that's a huge thing in relationships. You've got to be able to respect each other's boundaries. So, speaking of boundaries, that goes back to the whole Christian thing. That would be I can't even imagine how some people do that, where there's one person who's Christian and one person who is an atheist. Some people have managed to make it work. I, to this day, don't understand how it works, but to each their own. I personally wouldn't do it. I think because if you have kids in the relationship, I think the kids are just going to grow up super confused. They're going to feel as if they're going to have to choose sides, and you never want to put kids in that position. So, I'm not bashing anyone who goes for that type of relationship, but I know for me personally, it wouldn't be able to work. And, Godspeed to all of those who have been able to make those work. And also when you walk into these relationships, you have to see how the partner handles conflict. Because even before the date, there's going to be times where you may disagree on something. How does your partner respond to that? Is he or she disrespectful to you? Is he or she not respecting what you're saying, but it's always about them? You got to look at those things, and the more you analyze those things, you'll see if this relationship is long term. Sometimes you'll know whether this whether a relationship is long term very early on. And if you're dating to marry, don't even waste your time. There's so many fish in the sea, and don't settle for less. Don't settle for the bare minimum. Say to yourself, I deserve the best. And then once you find that long-term partner and create a life with them, you get to live happily ever after with them. So you just got to be able to maneuver through conflict in a healthy way, because there's some people that handle conflict so badly that it's actually so unbelievable that they are even still in a relationship, because it's become so toxic. And there's people that they argue almost every week, but they've just kind of just become, you know, they've adapted to it. And it's not good to adapt to toxicity. It's not. It really isn't. So I don't recommend anyone do that. But if you're happy in your life, whether it's toxic or whether it's not toxic, hold on to it. Now, to the people who are happy in their toxic relationships, I feel for you. And I hope that there will be some time in the future that you look at other people's relationships and you look at yours and say, you know what, this is not what I deserve. I deserve so much better. But that comes with time. So, you know, just do your research, be kind to one another, and try to make the relationship work. Because if it's long term and it's been toxic most of the time and you've somehow made it work, then something must be good in the relationship. So, you know, so the whole point of this episode was just to basically talk about where to find love in the right places, where to find friendships that's going to last for a long time. And once you find these relationships, hold on to them. Don't lose those people in your life, because once you have those people, because I have some of those people right now. I do not know what I would do without them. I do not know I would do, because when I have a bad day and just want to vent, sometimes I just randomly send them a text and say, "Hey, are you busy?" I am not the type of person that'll just randomly call, but they wouldn't mind it. But I am always like, you know what, can I call? And sometimes they're like, yes, sometimes they're busy and they can call back later. But it's just good to have those people in your life. It's good to have friends that will tell you when you're right and when you're wrong. That's the type of friend I need. Someone that will hold me accountable and tell me, you know what, you are being really wrong right now. That's what I need. Because sometimes I don't see what I'm doing. I need someone else's eyes to see it. And so that way they can correct me. So hold on to your relationships tight, whether it's a romantic relationship, whether it's a friendship. I'm just hoping it's not toxic. Hold on to those people for dear life. And I'm hoping that there will not be a situation in the future where you end up regretting being in this relationship, because every relationship, whether it's long term or short term, you learn something. So take the lessons from those relationships, grow from there, and make sure that you hold those people tight, because at the end of the day, when you're going through something, those should be the people that are the closest to you. I hope you all have had a great time listening to this podcast. I hope you learned something. Please let me know in my DMs what topics you would like for me to go over in future podcasts. And I hope that you guys have enjoyed the theme this month about friendships and relationships. I've really, really enjoyed coming out with these episodes every single week. So now for May, I've really got to come up with some different content. So please let me know what you would like for me to discuss, and I will come back on with another episode next week. I will link my Instagram down below so you can DM me if you would like to talk about your personal situation. And I just appreciate you all for supporting the channel, and I hope you have a great day. Take care.